The night air in the remote desert valley was thick with the scent of sagebrush and distant rain. I had been hiking alone for hours, my boots crunching over loose gravel, when I first heard it, a faint, metallic hum echoing from behind a cluster of jagged boulders. Curiosity, that dangerous companion of solitude, pulled me closer. My flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, revealing something impossible. A sleek, shimmering craft half buried in the sand, its surface pulsing with an otherworldly blue light. And there, slumped against a rock just outside the wreckage, was her. She was humanoid, but not human. Tall and lithe, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian under the moonlight, faint iridescent patterns tracing her arms like living tattoos. Her long hair, a cascade of silver-white strands, was matted with dust and what looked like dried blood. Though it glowed faintly, as if alive. Chains of some unfamiliar alloy bound her wrists and ankles, humming with suppressed energy. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, were vast pools of violet, filled with a mix of defiance and exhaustion that hit me like a punch to the chest. I froze, heart hammering. This wasn't some costume or hoax. The air around her crackled with static, and a low, melodic voice escaped her lips in a language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with starlight. She was captive, clearly not by choice. The chains weren't rusted, they were high-tech, designed to suppress whatever power she held. Whoever had done this to her had left her to die in this godforsaken place. I should have run. Called the authorities. But something in her gaze stopped me. It wasn't fear, it was a quiet, regal plea that spoke of worlds beyond my own. My hands trembled as I approached. Using a rock and sheer stubbornness, I smashed at the locking mechanisms until they sparked and released with a hiss. The chains fell away, and she gasped, her body arching as if reclaiming a stolen breath. "You freed me," she whispered in broken English, her voice like velvet over steel. Up close, she was breathtaking, high cheekbones, full lips that curved into a faint, pained smile. "Why?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice hoarse. "You looked like you needed help." "What the hell happened to you?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out, her fingers brushing my arm. A jolt of warmth surged through me, not painful but intimate, like sharing a secret with the universe itself. "Hunters," she said softly. "They came for my ship. I fought, but there were too many." Her eyes searched mine, vulnerability cracking through her composure. "You are kind, human. In my world, kindness is rare among strangers." We sat there for what felt like hours as the stars wheeled overhead. She told me fragments. Her name was Lyriel, she was from a distant star system called Illyria, a place of floating cities and eternal twilight. She had been on a diplomatic mission when her vessel was ambushed. The captors wanted her technology, her knowledge. I shared my own meager life, a burned-out engineer from the city, escaping into the desert to forget a string of failed relationships and a job that had hollowed me out. She listened with an intensity that made me feel seen for the first time in years. As dawn painted the horizon in soft golds, she stood, unsteady but determined. "I must return to my people. The hunters will come back." She placed a small, crystalline pendant in my palm, warm, humming faintly. "This will call me if you ever need aid. Thank you, for seeing me as more than a prize." I watched her activate a hidden beacon in the wreckage. A soft glow enveloped her, and she vanished in a swirl of light, leaving only the scent of ozone and the echo of her voice in my mind. For days afterward, I replayed every moment. Had it been real? The pendant glowed occasionally at night, a reminder that I hadn't imagined her. Then, 5 days later, the sky split open again. It was just after sunset. I was back in my small cabin on the edge of the valley, nursing a beer on the porch and staring at the pendant on the table. The air grew heavy, charged, and a low rumble built like thunder without clouds. Stars seemed to rearrange themselves, forming a perfect circle overhead. Light poured down in a column of silver and gold, and from it stepped Lyriel. But she wasn't the same. She wore a crown, a breathtaking diadem of crystalline spires intertwined with living vines that pulsed with inner light, jewels the color of nebulae embedded within. Her simple, torn garments had been replaced by flowing robes of midnight silk that shimmered like the cosmos, embroidered with symbols that shifted and danced as if telling stories of empires. Her hair was braided with threads of starlight, and her skin glowed with renewed vitality, the iridescent patterns now vibrant and commanding. She moved with the grace of someone who had never known chains, her posture straight and regal, exuding an aura that made the desert night feel small and reverent. My beer slipped from my fingers, shattering on the wooden planks. I stood, mouth dry, heart slamming against my ribs. Lyriel? She smiled, but it was different now, warm, yes, but layered with the weight of command. Those violet eyes still held the same depth, but they carried galaxies of responsibility. Behind her, two ethereal figures materialized briefly, armored guardians who bowed deeply before fading back into the light. She was not alone. She had brought a fragment of her world with her. You came back, I breathed, stepping down from the porch. Suspense coiled in my gut. Why now? What did this mean? The pendant on the table flared brightly, as if in recognition. Lyriel approached slowly, her robes whispering against the sand. The air around her was warmer, scented with something floral and electric. She stopped just inches away, close enough that I could see the faint scar on her collarbone from her captivity. The only reminder of her ordeal. I did, she said, her voice richer, more resonant, carrying the echo of thrones and starlit councils. I could not leave my debt unpaid, human. You freed me when the universe had turned its back. Emotion swelled in my chest, a confusing tangle of awe, joy, and a sharp undercurrent of fear. This wasn't just gratitude, her presence filled the space like a gravitational pull. You're a queen. She tilted her head, the crown catching the moonlight and scattering it into tiny rainbows. A soft laugh escaped her, but it held a hint of melancholy. Queen of Illyria's outer veil. Heir to the nebula throne. My captors were rivals from a shadowed faction, seeking to destabilize my rule by silencing me before the great confluence, a gathering of worlds where alliances are forged or shattered. Her hand rose, hovering near my cheek without touching. They underestimated the kindness of a lone wanderer on a forgotten planet. My mind raced. Suspense tightened like a wire. Had her return brought danger with it? Were those hunters still out there, now targeting me? Or worse, had freeing her altered something cosmic? I reached out instinctively, my fingers brushing the fabric of her robe. It was impossibly soft, alive with subtle energy that sent tingles up my arm. I didn't know. God, if I had. You would have done the same, she interrupted gently, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. In that moment, the desert faded. It was just us, two beings from vastly different worlds, connected by a single act of defiance against cruelty. Tears pricked at my eyes, unbidden. The emotional weight hit hard, the loneliness I'd carried for years, the quiet heroism she saw in me that I had never recognized in myself. She had been broken, chained, and I had offered freedom without expectation. Now she stood before me as a sovereign, yet her gaze held the same raw gratitude, laced with something deeper, affection. Longing. I returned not only to thank you, she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that wrapped around my soul. The suspense built as she glanced toward the horizon, where faint lights flickered unnaturally, perhaps her ship, perhaps threats unseen. My people owe you a life debt. But more than that, in the days since my escape, I have thought of you constantly. Your hands, steady despite fear. Your eyes, seeing beyond the alien. In the cold void of space, such warmth is a rare star. She stepped closer, her breath mingling with mine. The crown on her head seemed to hum in harmony with the pendant, which now floated gently between us, glowing brighter. Emotion crashed over me like a wave. Pride in what I'd done, terror at the implications, and a budding, impossible connection that transcended stars. What if her return meant she had to leave again? What if queens didn't form bonds with desert hermits? The air crackled with unspoken possibilities, the night holding its breath. I am no longer captive, Lyriel said, her fingers finally tracing my jawline, cool yet electrifying. A single tear escaped her eye, sparkling like a fallen comet. But in freeing me, you captured something of my heart. The confluence approaches, and shadows gather. Yet here, with you, I feel home. My hands found her waist, pulling her gently against me. The robes yielded like mist, her body warm and real beneath. Suspense peaked as distant thunder rolled, not weather, but perhaps the approach of her guardians or unseen enemies. Stay, I whispered, voice breaking with the weight of it all. Or take me with you. I don't care which world, as long as it's with you. She leaned in, forehead resting against mine, the crown's light bathing us both in ethereal glow. The stars are watching, my liberator. And for the first time in cycles, I am unafraid. Her lips brushed mine in a kiss that tasted of galaxies and second chances, soft at first, then fierce with pent-up emotion. Joy and sorrow intertwined, the thrill of reunion clashing with the dread of what might come next. As we stood there, entwined under the desert sky, the world felt both vast and intimately small. She had returned a queen, crowned and powerful, yet in my arms, she was simply Lyriel, the woman I had freed. The suspense lingered like a promise, of adventures across nebulae, of battles against shadows, of a love that could bridge the impossible. My heart swelled with an emotion so profound it bordered on pain, every beat a testament to the night I chose kindness over fear.